Hand a skilled anthropologist a single leg bone. No skull, no name tag, no grave goods. Just the lower half of a leg, pulled out of the dirt after a few thousand years. And there's a good chance they can tell you something strangely personal about the human it belonged to. Not their face. Not how they died. How they relaxed. Whether they lived in a world that had chairs. Because the way a person rests, day after day, year after year, gets quietly written into their bones, and it stays there long after everything soft about them is gone. There's one particular mark that shows up over and over in ancient skeletons and has almost completely vanished from modern ones. It records a single habit that nearly every human who ever lived shared, and that almost nobody watching this still has. Here's the unsettling part. Your skeleton is keeping that same record right now, and what yours is going to say is different from anything in human history. Let's start with the mark itself, because it's beautifully simple. When you fold into a deep squat, all the way down, heels flat on the ground, your ankle bends to an extreme angle. Your shin tips forward so far that the front edge of your lower leg bone presses right up against one of the bones in your ankle, two surfaces kissing that in most modern lives barely ever touch. Do that once, nothing happens. Do it for thousands of hours, from childhood into old age, and the bone responds the way bone always does to steady pressure. It remodels. It grows small, smooth, extra surfaces exactly where the contact happens. Anthropologists call them squatting facets, and they turn up on the lower shin, on the neck of the ankle bone, sometimes on the knee and the foot. They are, in the most literal way possible, a habit fossilized into the skeleton. A person didn't choose to grow them. Their lifestyle carved them in, one squat at a time. And once you know to look for these marks, you find them almost everywhere in the ancient world. They show up in the skeletons of ancient Egyptians. They show up in Neanderthals so consistently that one famous researcher flatly described our heavy-browed cousins as habitual squatters. They show up in Stone Age foragers, in early farming villages and burials across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. In some ancient populations, the majority of adults carry them, men and women alike, which tells us this wasn't one specialized job. It was just how people existed. The squat, for most of human history, wasn't an exercise or a stretch or a yoga pose. It was the default human off switch. The thing your body did the moment there was nothing that needed standing up for. When an ancient hunter finished a kill and dropped down to wait, they didn't look around for somewhere to sit. They folded down onto their own legs, and they were comfortable there for as long as they liked, and their bones slowly grew to fit the position. Most humans who have ever lived rested this way. You are the strange one. So here's the obvious question. If squatting was that universal, and the bones prove it was, then where did it go? When did our species stop getting low? And this is where the skeleton turns into a kind of clock, because the disappearance of these marks isn't random. It has a date. Researchers studied a long run of human skeletons from across many centuries, tracking these squatting marks through time, and they found something remarkable. The marks stayed common for century after century after century, right through antiquity and deep into the Middle Ages. And then, around the end of the medieval period, they start to fade. Not because human bodies changed, because human homes did. That fading lines up almost exactly with the moment that furniture moved indoors for ordinary people. Stoves, raised hearths you didn't have to crouch over, tables, and most of all, seating. As chairs and benches crept into everyday domestic life, people stopped spending their hours folded on the floor, and within a few generations, their skeletons stopped recording it. Think about what that means. The bones captured the exact century the chair quietly took over a culture. The arrival of furniture is written into human anatomy as clearly as a layer in the rock. You can dig up the moment we sat down. Now, you might be thinking, fine, but who cares? So our ancestors squatted and we sit. Both are just resting. Why would it matter to anything except a museum? And for a long time, that was a fair objection. Until scientists actually measured what's happening inside a body that rests on the ground versus a body that rests in a chair, and the difference turned out to be much bigger than anyone expected. The clearest look came from studying a group of modern hunter-gatherers in Tanzania, people who still live close to the way our ancestors did, foraging and hunting, with no chairs anywhere in their world. Researchers strapped sensors on them to measure exactly how much time they spent resting. And the result was a shock to everyone who pictures these people as tireless and constantly on the move. They were sedentary for roughly 9 to 10 hours a day, about the same as a desk worker in a rich country. They rest as much as we do. But here's the twist that changes everything. They were nearly free of the heart and metabolic diseases we link to sitting all day. Same amount of stillness, almost none of the damage. The difference was in how they held that stillness. They weren't slumping into something padded. They were squatting, kneeling, sitting on the ground with their legs working. And when the researchers measured the muscles in their legs during these rests, those muscles weren't switched off. They stayed gently, continuously active, humming along at a low level the entire time. The team called it active rest. And that connects to something we've learned about why chairs are so quietly harmful. The problem with a chair isn't really that you're not moving. It's that your big leg muscles go completely silent. And when those muscles fall silent, the body downshifts. The machinery that pulls fat and sugar out of your blood slows right down, because idle muscle doesn't ask for fuel. Hold that shutdown for 10 hours a day, every day, for decades, and you get the modern wave of metabolic disease. But a deep squat never lets the muscles fully clock out. They're still holding you up, still asking for a trickle of fuel, still sending the body the signal stay ready instead of shut down. So those squatting marks in the ancient bones weren't just a quirk of posture. They were the visible fingerprint of a body that spent its rest switched on. Our ancestors weren't doing anything heroic. They simply lived in a world where the only way to relax was a way that kept the lights on. If your back is starting to ache just hearing about this, take a second to subscribe before you shift in your seat, because the reason you personally can't do this anymore is stranger than you'd guess. Because here's the thing. You were not born stiff. You shipped from the factory with this ability fully installed. Watch any small child playing on the ground and you'll see it. A toddler doesn't kneel awkwardly or flop onto their side to study a bug on the pavement. They drop into a flawless, heels flat, bottom down squat and hang there happily for ages with zero training and zero effort. The deep squat is the default human resting shape, and every single one of us had it before we turned 4. And then, slowly, the modern world takes it away. The moment a child starts spending their days in chairs, at school desks, on sofas, in car seats, the body does what bodies always do. It adapts to what you ask of it, and it quietly discards what you don't. Ask the ankles and hips to hold a stiff right angle for tens of thousands of hours, and they stop maintaining the range they're not being asked to use. The calves shorten. The hips tighten. By your 20s, you crouch down the way you did effortlessly as a kid, and your heels lift off the floor like they're spring-loaded, and you decide the position must be unnatural. It isn't. You were trained out of it by the furniture you grew up in. And we know it's the furniture and not human biology, because there's a living experiment running right now. Across enormous regions of Asia, Africa, and rural communities all over the planet, the deep ground squat never disappeared. People wait, cook, eat, talk, and rest in a full, flat-footed squat for as long as they please, well into old age. Their bones aren't built differently from yours. Their ankles simply never forgot, because the chair never became the only option. Same species, same anatomy, completely different ability, and the only thing that changed between them and you is what was in the room when you grew up. So let me leave you with the part that I find genuinely haunting. For tens of thousands of years, the squat was so central to being human that our skeletons grew around it, and any future digger could read it in our bones. We are the generation where that signal goes quiet. The archaeologists of the distant future, sifting through our remains, are not going to find squatting facets on us. They'll find the opposite. They'll find skeletons shaped by chairs, by desks, by a lifetime folded at the same stiff angle staring at a glowing rectangle. We will be the strange layer in the record. The first humans whose bones say, here is where they stopped getting down to the ground. The child inspecting that bug on the sidewalk still has the thing your 40th great-grandparent had by the fire. You were born with it too. The only question left is whether your skeleton has already decided what story it's going to tell.